Okay, so I'm going to be presenting number 1 on the trig equations and inverse trig assignment. So my values say cosine of, and then there's open parentheses, so you're taking the cosine of 2x minus pi over 15 and trying to figure out when will that give you 0. Okay, so there's no algebra I can do right now, and the reason is I have everything inside the parentheses and then the trig function on the outside. So that stuff in parentheses is buried. I can't quite get to it yet with algebra. So instead I have to talk about the trig. I need to be asking, when is the cosine 0? So what angle has a cosine of 0? So remembering that cosine is the x value on the unit circle. So I'm looking for when the x value is 0. So if I don't want to move x at all, I can move y straight up. I'll have pi over 2, or I can move y straight down and have 3 pi over 2. In both of those cases, right, think about the ordered pairs, 0 is the x value, 0, 1, or 0, negative 1. So again, pi over 2 or 3 pi over 2. Now that works for anything coterminal. So pi over 2 plus 2 pi n. 3 pi over 2 plus 2 pi n. Okay, so if it asked for all the answers, I would be done. These are all the answers, but it actually gives me a restricted domain. It's saying find all the answers in the interval 0 to 2 pi, including 0 because square bracket, not including 2 pi. So I've got to do a little bit more work. Or actually, I wasn't even done before because the stuff inside parentheses, I got to deal with that too. I oversimplified this problem. So this would be my answer if the stuff inside parentheses was just x, but it's not. It is 2x minus pi over 15. Okay, I'm going to erase this and just move it a little bit lower so I have more room to work out this equation. So I will need to work out 3 pi over 2 plus 2 pi n equal to 2x minus pi over 15 as well. Okay, so now I'm in algebra mode. I have to solve this for x. So I need to add pi over 15 to the other side. So if I'm trying to add pi over 2 plus pi over 15, I need a common denominator. So pi over 2 in terms of 15ths, or actually common denominator is going to be 30. It's going to be 15 pi over 30. And then if I add pi over 15 in terms of 30ths, that'll be like adding 2 pi over 30. So I've moved this to the other side and gotten a common denominator. And that's going to be 2 pi n. And that will equal 2x because the pi over 15 I've moved over. Now this in total gives me 17 pi over 30. So 17 pi over 30 plus 2 pi n equals 2x. So if I want to solve for x, I have to divide everything by 2. Okay, so dividing every term by 2. 17 pi over 30, if I divide by 2, there's already a 30 in the denominator. If I put a 2 in the denominator, it'll be over 60. Another way of thinking about that is dividing by 2 is like multiplying by 1/2. So my denominator is going to have a 2 times a 30. So 17 pi over 60, divide this term by 2, plus pi n. Those are some of my x answers. I have to do that same arithmetic down here. But notice the common denominator is not going to change. So pi over 15 and 3 pi over 2 will have a common denominator of 30. So what is going to change is how this fraction looks once you get a common denominator. In order to get this in terms of 30ths, multiply top and bottom by 15, and you'll have 45 pi over 30. Add this guy. In terms of 30ths, he will be 2 pi over 30. Same thing as he was up above. 2 pi n is still 2 pi n, and that will equal 2x. Common denominator, I can now add the numerators. 47 pi over 30 plus 2 pi n equals 2x. Divide every term by 2. Right, same algebra we talked about a moment ago. This will change the denominator to a 60. So 47 pi over 60. Divide this term by 2, the 2's cancel, and you get plus pi n. Okay, now I'm at the point where if it had said find all the x's, these would be my 2 equations. But it doesn't say find all the x's. So instead, I have to find all the x's in this interval. So one answer is 17 pi over 60. Another answer is 47 pi over 60. But those are not the only 2. The reason being is I'm not adding 2 pi anymore. If I were adding 2 pi, I would be beyond this interval. 2 pi is 1 revolution. So as soon as I add 2 pi, I'm out of this range. But if I just add pi, I'm within the range. So taking this angle and adding pi to it, that's like adding 60 pi over 60 as a common denominator. So adding 1 pi to this answer will give me 77 pi over 60. That's not outside the interval. That number's not more than 2. 77 over 60 is not more than 2. Okay. Same thing down here. This one says 47 pi over 60. If I add a pi to that, it's like adding 60 over 60. So I end up with 107 pi over 60. 107 over 60 is not more than 2, so I'm within this range. So in total, I have 4 answers. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. All right, there's a lot going on in this problem, so make sure you've asked questions if you have them. This is totally fair game for the final exam. Good luck.